Greetings and welcome to our daily walk through the scripture for November the 27th. Your readings today find you in Daniel chapter 5, 2 Peter 2, Psalm 119, verses 113 through 128, and Proverbs chapter 28, verses 19 and 20. Now, in 2 Peter chapter 2, Peter is trying to warn them to protect them from, false prophets, if you will. This is not a unique problem. This is something that we still have issue with today. And Peter calls out specifically false prophets who make a mockery of God in a number of ways. One of those ways is to, they chase money. Here in verses 12 and 13, it talks about people that blaspheme in manners they do not understand. They will be paid back with harm. They have eyes full of adultery. They left straight the way and followed the way of Balaam, who loved the wages of the wickedness. There's people that are chasing fame, that are chasing recognition, and that are chasing money. And we can recognize in many ways those false prophets fairly easily. And you look at some of the people that are in the name it, claim it, those kind of things. And it's really easy to tell that they are not following the scripture. Yet there are other false prophets who are harder to recognize because they are more in disguise. They look the part, they act the part, they teach the part generally, yet they will provide some falsities into it. And those are much more difficult to recognize. Those are much more difficult to discern. And it requires us to have a biblical knowledge. That was what Peter was talking about in the chapter yesterday, is making sure that you are accessing the right knowledge, not the false knowledge, so that we can recognize them. Now, Peter does say eventually they go back and they recognize themselves. That's what it means when he talks about it in verse 22, when he says that a dog returns to his vomit, or a sow that is washed returns to her wallowing in the mud. Meaning, eventually, no matter how good they look on the outside, eventually they will run back to exactly show you who they are as a character. Now, this, though, however, means that we have to make sure that we are not only discerning, but we have the courage to say the right things and to not follow the ways of those crowds. Narrow is the path. I mean, here's the reality of Christianity. We are, if we're truly following the gospel of Jesus, we're going to recognize and see times when we're going to be alone, when we will not be what everybody else wants us to be. And that includes sometimes within church bodies. It can be really easy for us to get led astray and not recognize it. And we see it, unfortunately, all the time. You place your trust in someone, you need to make sure that who they are is someone who is pursuing Jesus Christ. If you're following a leader who is not following scripture, then you need to run away. You need to be like Noah. You need to be like Lot, the ones that were rescued because they were willing to go against what everyone else was trying to do. So Peter here is telling us, hey, listen, you just need to understand that at some point, you're going to have to make a decision that's going to go against the grain. It happens to all of us. We're all going to have those opportunities where we're going to have to follow God, or we're going to have to follow the ways of the world. And the question then follows into two categories. One, are we discerning enough to recognize those opportunities? The only way we can be discerning is if we're following the will of God by following what he says in Scripture. Remember, Scripture is our test. It is the way that we recognize whether something is true or not. False prophets will always speak against Scripture, and they'll say they have a better word or a new word. No, it doesn't work like that. So you got to have the discernment. The second part is you got to have the courage. Are you brave enough to go against? Now, you don't do it in a way that is accusatory. You don't do it in a way that is retaliatory, in a way that is inciting up things. Instead, you are a peacemaker who peacefully, respectfully, and humbly exits a situation. So there you go. Recognizing false teachers, recognizing the path that they're going to go on requires those two things, discernment and courage. All right, there's our conversation for today. We'll talk more next time.